It's good to have you once again on Sunday Politics. This is a platform where we engage topical issues in the polity, within the week. And my name is Shafiu Suleiman. And today we are looking at a very important issue, talking about hunger. Now, an estimated 16% of Nigerians are billed to face severe food insecurity between June and August this year, according to International Rescue Committee, IRC. This is meaning they are extremely hungry. Now, across some states, especially endemic states, residents who are low-income earners can barely feed their family with 3 meals, while those below the poverty line sometimes go to bed with empty stomachs due to the situation in the country, especially with regards to the food insecurity. Now, the level of food insecurity in Nigeria has, raised a lot of concerns among critical stakeholders and Nigerians alike. Now, the recent nationwide, protest that took place in Nigeria was predicated on this very important issue, that is the need for food across, the length and breadth of Nigeria. And of course, it has also raised a lot of concerns in respect to the level of malnutrition, especially among children who are mostly in those, endemic states. A number of them have been reported, are being reported on daily basis, have been, have been going to centers designated, to take care of this very serious humanitarian issue. Now, on the platform tonight, we'll be looking at the issues around, especially the concerns, or rather the claim. There have been claims and counter-claims concerning the hunger issue in Nigeria. While Nigerians are almost unanimous that there is hunger in the land, those in authority felt it is being exacerbated, or the claim is being exaggerated. So we'll be looking very closely at this issue, and we have joining us tonight, very respected personalities. Who have joining us from Lagos, a former Minister of Youth and Sports, also a human rights, activist, if I should put it that way, talking about Solomon Dalong. He will be joining us from Lagos to give us his perspective. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for joining us.
Good evening, Nigerians, and thank you, Sir Shafiu.
All right. We'll also be joined by an agripreneur, one who has been engaged practically in agricultural activities, is a practicing farmer, at the same time is also a pastoralist. But you'll be surprised, it's not a pastoralist from the Fulani extraction, he is a pastoralist from the Urobo community, in the south, so to speak. Tadike Ratsen, if you're there, thank you for joining us also. Okay, I hope he will join us in the course of the conversation. But before we kickstart the program, I would like to get the views of Nigerians across some states. There are reports put together by our correspondents in Katsina and, of course, Kaduna. Let's start with Katsina, where Ibrahim Yamadi sent us this, they put together rather the consensus, if you like, or the views of Nigerians in that state. Let's get to watch the report.
The economic hardship is undoubtedly taking a toll on these residents. Roasted and boiled maize is quickly becoming the go-to meal for the common man in the north. Someone came to my shop begging for something to eat, saying he hadn't had food for 2 days.
People die. People they die. Food will cost. Nobody buy food. People they die, yo. Like now, if you shop today, tomorrow no go shop. Some people they drink water. No, go sleep. 5 days now, I never shop. Me and my children. No, they make people die. That's my problem.
Gaskiya arewa muna cikin wani halin haula sai
We are in a dire situation due to hunger in the north. We are forced to eat corn because foodstuffs are too expensive. Even gari is beyond our reach. We rarely see food, and when we do, we can only afford to eat once a day. Our children are not even getting enough to satisfy their hunger. Due to the economic hardships they are enduring, they are appealing to the government to address the challenges Nigerians are facing. We are struggling, but we are praying to God for relief from We urge our leaders to have compassion. We voted for them, expecting they would address our challenges, but the situation has worsened instead. In addition to economic crisis, many believe that insecurity and insufficient rainfall could lead to a food crisis in the region if urgent action.
Food insecurity is defined as the persistent concern about access to sufficient and affordable food at all times, which can lead to increase in food poverty and malnutrition in communities with low standards of living. Nigeria is currently facing devastating food insecurity, with statistics indicating rising number of severely food insecure citizens and soaring indices of severely malnourished children, especially in poverty endemic zones. The fundamental question is there hunger in the land, as claimed in many quarters?
As you can see, I am sick and hungry. Who is doubting about hunger, my son? You bought this jute sleeve for me right now, isn't it? This is my breakfast. I have dependents. About 6 of them, including my mother, are all hungry. This is the worst I have ever seen in my entire life.
There is no doubt hunger is at its peak in the land. For me and my children cannot count the number of days we go to bed on empty stomach. As I speak, it's now 3:30 p.m. I haven't eaten anything, and my children are there waiting for me. I am an artisan, and there is no work everywhere you go. Why are you asking me this kind of question? I can't talk any longer. You have no justification asking me this question. As you see me so, this is my 3rd day without a meal. Thank you for this lift you bought for me.
Though Nigeria is not at war like in Somalia or facing severe drought, did the current state of food insecurity has any link to insecurity ravaging the north? Or as a result of subsidy removal?
I am the chairman of Cassava Sellers Union in Castina. I am telling you, we are on a rescue mission, because without us selling this cassava, the hunger crisis will have been more devastating. Even with this, many people are dying from hunger. I'm a deaf person with a wife and 11 children going hungry. I have not eaten anything. I'm terribly in hunger. I pray God salvage us from this current hardship. As for me, I am in trouble. Hunger is killing my children.
Gaskiya ba da rogo ba.
Let me tell you, these cassava sellers are a source of salvation to Katsina residents. Without them, Katsina would have been in a shame. I believe hunger would have been killing many people. But now, with 500 naira, you can feed your family with this cassava. You can also buy moringa, tafasa, and jute leaves to feed your family. Just how bad the situation is. International humanitarian bodies such as the Medicine Sans Frontiers in Katsina State confirmed it is receiving over 5,000 malnutrition cases among children in its facility monthly. Nigeria's Bureau of Statistics Multidimensional Poverty Index 2022 also indicates that Katsina State has a poverty rate of 72.70%, meaning that 7 out of the 10.2 million people of the state are poor, making households' accessibility to nutritious foods, sound education, quality health care, shelter, good drinking water, and sanitation services extremely difficult. Abdullahi Izuma Yamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
That's the situation aptly captured there in Nigeria. The food insecurity situation in Nigeria from across states. That report from Bello Mohammed in Kaduna, and of course Ismail Yamadi from Katsina perhaps must have captured the situation aptly. Now, let's go to our guests who are on standby to give us their various perspectives on this subject matter. Let's go to Lagos to have the views of the former Minister of Youth and Sports. Honorable Minister, if you're there, once again, thank you for joining the conversation. Right. Okay, you watched those reports. What actually came to your mind, as a Nigerian? How do you understand the situation, the hunger situation in the country?
Well, I don't think it's the issue of the report that is the problem, basically. But the report, more or less, is a corroboration of what I know very well. Because I live among the people, I live among the community, I interact freely with people. And what you hear in this report is what we deal with every day. Because the people are starving in some places. Katsina is much better because they have cassava. But in some places, people scavenge on leaves that are not bitter in rural areas in order to survive. And the story of 4 or 5 days without food to eat is very common among our people. But all these things were exacerbated by the policy of the federal government when it came on board in 2023. And since then, living conditions of Nigeria has worsened. People cannot afford to eat. People starve. People are dying of hunger. And it's just unfortunate. So I think the report is a complete corroboration of the prevailing situation in the Nigerian average community.
Okay, before we begin to examine the factors, that led to this, and the alternatives people are seeking, just like you said, in that report, we saw how people are now, having cassava, and other leaves as a soko, supplements, if you like, or alternatives to the kind of food staples that are being consumed in Nigeria. You sought to attribute the problem or the challenge to the current administration, but some will tell you that hunger has been there, perhaps not at this level, but then there are people who are hungry in Nigeria, and then there are people who are living below the poverty line, even the coming of this administration. What do you think, why do you think a country like Nigeria that is endowed, with all that is needed in terms of land, cultivable land, in terms of the manpower, in terms of the water, the river basins and all of that, will get to this level of food insecurity?
Well, if we're going to go by the arguments of some people, I think we need to look at this report which we just watched, because the people were very, very categorical about the situation confronting them. And they attested to the fact that it has never been like this. You could see an elderly person, just being asked the question about hunger, he started crying. So this is to tell you that, yes, they are aware of the poverty level, and there is no society all over the world that there are no poor people or no hunger. But the level is what is very significant, and what is the basis of this? That is the basis of this our discussion. And I think with all that we have in Nigeria, we are blessed with forests, mineral resources, water bodies, human capital. So we're not lacking in anything in this country. In terms of agriculture, Nigeria can feed the whole of Africa.
But unfortunately, it cannot feed itself now. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, since we are talking about the nexus between the current situation and the policy options the country has to take, to what level do you think, the removal of petrol subsidy has impacted the food security situation in the country?
Well, the pronouncement that subsidy is gone inflicted psychological trauma on Nigerians. Even though the issue of policy is what some of us believe as scam. And what we are dealing with now is not withdrawal of fuel subsidy, but we're dealing with the increase of pump price by government at every turn of event. So when the pronouncement was made, it was 400 and something, naira 420 or 417 per liter. But of course, today, they kept increasing the pump price, and we're now at 9.50 per liter. So this statement, which to some of us is not even the main reason, but rather the statement is an endorsement of the existing criminal enterprise in the petroleum industry, where the National Assembly had already established through an investigation that there were 16 oil companies involved in importation of oil into Nigeria, and that they were the suspects or culpable of the subsidy regime racketeering. But 2 out of those companies came out and said, we have never collected a dime from government, Rano and Eagle Oil. So the 14 that remain indicted by that report, what the president would have ordinarily do is not to have accorded them immunity, because the pronouncement that subsidy is gone means, subsidy regime racketeers had been granted immunity to now wreak more havoc. So that's why we're into more mess
that is
than before.
Of the statement, actually. But I think the people in government will say, no, we did that perhaps to save Nigeria from this, West, if you like, or the pilfering of these resources. But let's look at, the food insecurity itself, Expert will tell you that there are categories, if you like, or layers to understand what food insecurity means. I don't know, perhaps you are also a farmer. I'm sure virtually all Nigerians are farmers. But then the issue is that when there is lack of access to food, and then there is also, lack of affordability, and again, lack of availability, then you can, be able to establish that there is food insecurity. Now, what do you make up with the, where do you place the situation? Is it on the three, or which of the factors was visible, largely visible in Nigeria? Is it that there's lack of access to food? There is food, but then people cannot access it, and perhaps that due to, low purchasing power or the cost? Let me get your perspective.
All these three factors are at play in the Nigerian situation. There is even the food is not there, and even if it is there, it's not affordable by Nigerians. And this put together now goes back to the purchasing power, because people have no food, they cannot even afford food, they cannot do businesses involved in economic activities. So their purchasing power is also very, very low. But the purchasing power is a factor of the galloping inflation caused by the unstable or inconsistent monetary policy of the government. So definitely the three factors are at play. And let me add quickly that when I spoke about the issue of the fuel subsidy, I'm speaking as an informed person who had been in government. So I'm not just speculating, but I'm making informed statement which is to guide Nigerians. Right. Because if people are aware of what happened, they will also have at least some psychological relief.
Okay, yeah, talking about the fuel subsidy and how it affects the food security situation in Nigeria. The cost, you talked about the fact that, all the factors are involved. Cost is one of the critical factors. Now, it's exacerbated perhaps by the cost of transportation as a result of the removal of subsidy. You've, sought to find fault lines, if you like, or holes in the subsidy removal itself and the modality, if you like, or the reason behind, the rationale behind it. Now, what do you think the government ought to have done, in a situation like this? Do you think perhaps if the government reversed this pronouncement or get through with its policy of, taking advantage of the gas deposit in the country, talking about the CNG, because what the government is saying to alleviate, if you like, or to reduce the cost of transportation, it is engaging, or rather it is utilizing the natural gas, to be able to bring down the cost of transportation through the CNG buses and what have you. Do you think this is working?
Well, governance is a very, very serious business, and it's not something you can experiment because it relates to human lives. So if you experiment and it fails, then the consequences can be very, very adverse. So I think the entire policy of government as it relates to the subsidy regime administration was more or less experimental, and it was not informed by either data or statistics, but it was more or less an emotional policy. The president felt, well, I have campaigned, that I was going to withdraw subsidy, so I will do it on day one. And doing it on day one is even unconstitutional because there was no government. After his inauguration, there was no government. It was only himself and the vice president. There was no cabinet to have reviewed and approved the policy. So, and there were even no advisors. Because if there were advisors, his economic advisor would have also had reviewed and maybe re-evaluate the blueprint to have advised. But there was nobody, there was even no government. So the policy in itself is an unconstitutional act. I mean, in normal democracies, it would have caused the government a very expensive consequences. But in our own clan here, where democracy is merely practiced rhetorically, it goes. Because I still challenge the president that why does he derive the power to have made that pronouncement? Yes, you campaign to withdraw subsidy. So you can only do that when you have formed government. And then we hold the cabinet responsible. But you have just taken your oath of office and in your inaugural speech, which ordinarily you would have reinforced the fact that, okay, I promised I was going to withdraw first subsidy. When the government is in place, we are going to put off a mechanism to deal with the withdrawal and then the consequences of the withdrawal. Now, this would have taken us to the issue of the CNG, which is more or less like now a national anthem. Every day, CNG. Buhari was talking about 5 million. Now this government is talking about 1 million. In the next few months, they will be saying that, okay, the CNG has been reduced to 100,000. So, you know, this speculative approach to governance is what has placed the country into this very big quagmire and rising cost of living, galloping inflation, inconsistent monetary policies, and then all this put together is given oxygen by corruption.
Okay, now talking about the linkage between the current food insecurity situation and perhaps the rising inflation in the country. We are all aware of the fact that the general, if like headline inflation in the country is exacerbated by food inflation. You earlier established the fact that there is no, even if there is presence, if you like, or availability of food, it is not enough perhaps to feed Nigerians, and at the same time it is not affordable because Nigerians do not have the purchasing power and all of that. We are looking at measures. The CNG buses was to cut down the cost of transportation, including food supplies and all of that. But the CBN is also coming up with other measures to tame the inflation. I mean, do you see any impact, especially dealing with food inflation? They've been increasing the interest rate and what have you. Does it has any impact, if you like, in terms of reducing the cost? I mean, reducing the food crisis in the country?
This government has been in office for about 15 months now. Now, the policy was inaugural. Therefore, in the first 3 months, there should have been a rollout of the palliative regime administration of how to deal with the cost and effects of the policy. But all the rhetorics contained in the inaugural speech is the same thing. All the ministers were still the same thing, meaning that there is nothing on the ground. The truth is that there is nothing on the ground. If you see the war of words, if you listen to the war of words between the governors and the federal government, oh, we released 570 billion to the states, and the states are saying, no. There was nothing given to us. What was given to us was a COVID intervention. And then, oh, we released 20 trucks to the states, and some governors are saying, well, it takes 4 years for a truck to travel from Abuja to Jos. So we have not gotten it yet. So these frowns and backwards movement of the government is more or less like governance of propaganda, but there is nothing concrete. Now, food production. If this government now has taken this very drastic measure and they wanted to deal with the problem in the oil sector, how many months does it take to produce crops? There are crops that are 90 days, there are crops that are 60 days, there are crops that are 30 days. So if the government had, from day one now, embarked on massive
Honorable Minister,
acquiring...
I think we have a caller on the line. We want to make the program more interactive by involving Nigerians, to give us also their perspectives. I'll hold you a bit so that we can hear from Nigerians also. I think we have a caller on the line. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, who do we have on the line?
Hello, I'm Suleiman from Kaduna.
Okay, Haruna Suleiman from Kaduna.
From Kaduna. I just want to appreciate your guest there. He is speaking the truth and nothing but the truth. This man is not ready to. He's not ready to do what is needful. People are suffering. People are suffering, and he don't care. All his story is a repeated one. Thank you.
Well, Suleiman, before you go, he said. Are you saying that all the measures that have been taken are not working? The former minister has been talking about palliatives. The government is also talking about reducing the cost by allowing some import waiver so that food can come into the country. You say all of this are not working? Okay, I think he's gone. But then let's get to hear. Okay, another caller is on the line.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello, good evening. Hello. Okay, I think we lost that call too. Keep calling. The number is on your screen. We want to hear as much from you, Nigerians, directly bearing the brunt of this policy options. Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening. You need to turn down the volume of your TV or even stay away from it completely.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, okay. Your name and where you are calling from?
My name is Abdul Kabir from Lagos.
Abdul Karim from Lagos.
Abdul Kabir.
Abdul Kabir from Lagos. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, in contribution to what we are currently facing in Nigeria, I believe the federal government, if they've removed subsidy, and they are subsidizing or they are sending palliatives to Nigerians, which I think is not the best way to go. The only thing that can go around is the subsidy, which every Nigerian is enjoying. So I would have loved if the government can reverse the subsidy so that everybody can, enjoy the dividend of democracy. So, but later, if they now say that the only way they can do is to remove subsidy, but it shouldn't be as urgent as the federal government took the decision, on the day the president was sworn in. So I believe the only thing they can, bring down the tension of the country now is to go back to the subsidy so that everybody can be happy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Abdul Kabir, for your perspective. Okay, let's go back to Minister and then, to get your... Nigerians are actually corroborating what you are saying and also talking along the line of the need to reverse the subsidy, right? You also mentioned earlier that that statement made was out of context, perhaps was done without consultations and so on. But what the government is saying is that at that point, it has no option than to announce it has gone because the previous administration did not budgeted for it. Do you take that, explanation?
The explanation is not is dishonest, because as at the time the subsidy was announced to have been purportedly withdrawn, there was still 1 month of subsidy on the ground. So if the federal government withdrew the subsidy and there was 1 month in our budget, can the government account for where is that 1 month of the subsidy provided in 2023 budget? The wisdom of the previous administration was the 1 month was a window for the government to have made adequate preparations. In fact, there was even 500 million loan from the World Bank that was applied for by the previous administration. All these were funds put on ground for the government to deal with the issue of the subsidy. But the government had a surplus of 1 month in the budget, which up to now has not been accounted for. And then the 500 billion was what was shared between the National Assembly, the judiciary having 35 billion, the National Assembly 72 or so billion. And so there is indeed nothing practically on the ground to deal with the situation. The government had not started to address this problem. Sharing of palliatives to governors is giving them palliatives to stock for their campaigns and not for Nigerians. The president should develop another different method of dealing with this.
Right. Sorry for the interruption. I think we have another caller on the line. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, who do we have on the line?
Mr. Lognan calling from Niger State.
Okay, go ahead, please.
The challenges we are having, that is the cost of living we are experiencing in Nigeria today.
Yes, go.
It is a serious one, and what causes it is not only this removal of the fuel subsidy, but the tax regime, that is the increase, the upward review of the electricity. It is a serious problem we are having, and other policies like that is causing a serious issues for us in Nigeria. And looking at the governors, what policies have they put on ground to take care of these challenges at their state level? Because no state in Nigeria now can come out and tell us that, yes, their governor have done something and really poverty or the cost of living has been relieved in their various states. And the federal allocation is shared in between the federal and the state and the local government. So what positively have they done in order to alleviate the cost of living to the people that we are having in Nigeria? So the governors too have chunks of the blame, not only the federal government. We are not refusing that the fuel subsidy has not cost us hardship. But what has the governors significantly done to reduce the cost of living on their citizens?
Okay. Honourable Minister, yes, it's actually expanding the conversation, as it were. We have 3 tiers of government, the federal, the state, and of course the local governments. And many felt that there is need for the subnational governments to have also made certain impact in terms of reducing the hardship, precisely the hunger. He talked about another factor, talking about the electricity tariff hike and all of that. And then insecurity has been also one major concern, especially in this part of the country. How do you see, what do you make up with the measures being taken by the federal and the state governments to deal with the issue of insecurity, which has substantially, reduced the output in terms of agricultural, production in Nigeria?
We practice presidential democracy, and the powers between the horizontal relationship and the vertical relationship of the federating units are contained in what we call exclusive list, concurrent list, and the residual list. Now, the exclusive list belongs to the federal government. All these three issues you raise, security, the economic policies, and the issue of taxation, all fell within the exclusive list of the federal government. So how do you expect state government to go outside their jurisdiction where they are incompetent to legislate? Now, we have the National Assembly making an act for the issue of electricity, thereby bringing electricity under the concurrent list and allowing the states now to generate their own electricity. There are only few states that had utilized this window. But for the economic policies, the federal government manages the national economy and monetary policies. So if they had gone there to instigate a crisis without even engaging the state governors, you see, the behavior of the state governors is because they were not consulted. And because they were not consulted, they are excellent people who are sabotaging anything that is happening. Because by the virtue of the constitution, they are autonomous federating units. The governor in our democracy is a dictator who is insulated by immunity. There is nothing you can do to him until after 8 years. And after 8 years, if he makes up his mind to take refuge in the governor's lodge, you cannot reach him. So this is what we are dealing with. But I agree with him that the governors would have also gone out of their way to create some palliative regime and then encourage farming. But farming had been abated by insecurity. Insecurity had made it impossible for people in the north, and if not everywhere in Nigeria, to farm without fear. In the north today, all the lands that were feeding the whole country had been abandoned. We have now instances of kidnapping now of prominent Nigerians and then being killed in custody of bandits. As I'm talking to you now, there are about three traditional rulers, 3 in the custody of bandits, 2 in Niger, 1 in Taraba. The one in Sokoto has been killed. Now, if a leader is killed, based on our tradition as Africans, the death of a leader or the kidnapping of a leader is the conquering of the people. So there is psychological trauma, fear that is running supreme. So insecurity has dealt a major blow and is a major contributor to the hunger and its social challenges we are facing.
Okay, we're beginning to see, just like we were analyzing earlier, some sort of response on the part of the government. Issues of palliative has been there, even though many Nigerians felt it is not effective. Earlier you talked about, putting together mechanisms before making pronouncements that could exacerbate, situations like this. There has been also claims that the national reserves, that are being kept, if you like, or being run specifically because of rainy days like this, or because of when there are situations like this, are empty, going by the claims. But then the government is also coming up with measures to say, okay, let's provide food waiver, import waiver, so that food can come into the country. They're also, making some if you like, investments in agriculture and so on. How do you think we can get it right in terms of dealing with the situation, long term, short term and medium term?
Well, these elaborate policies of government are only on paper. They are nowhere on the ground to be found. I have emphasized the issue of the palliative. I have gone to my village and nobody had ever told me that he has seen a cup of rice from the federal government. And the measure of the test of efficacy of a policy is from the consumers of that policy. So there is nothing on the ground. If the president has shared, he has compensated the governors for supporting him, and those things are stocked in their warehouses waiting for election. So Nigerians are still very hungry. Then back to the other issues which the government have been talking about. Agriculture. They have been talking about, oh, we're investing in agriculture. The government would have come out and said, oh, we have a farm in Sabongida in Langtan South, 50 hectares, 100 hectares. We will now know that they are investing. But all we hear is we're investing in hectares, and these hectares exist in the space. The issue of national reserve, there is nothing called national reserve. All those national reserves have been sold to individuals during Buhari. So they are owned and controlled. Yes, they are owned and controlled by private persons. That is the truth. So we are only using the concept of national reserve to create hope in the minds of Nigerians. But the national reserve has since been sold to individuals, and they are managed by private persons. So let us be
anyway. Okay. Yeah, as we round up, we've seen that in those reports, the devastating situation and how Nigerians are finding it extremely difficult, to live. The level of malnutrition among children is also of a concern. What would you suggest, going forward? What needs to be done urgently to tame the tide of this hunger, the ravaging hunger?
You see, the president, the policy of the issue of importation waiver and all these things it cannot address the issue at hand. A fuel subsidy, even if it is going to be restored for 6 months to give room for government to activate some of these elaborate policies it has, it is very, very necessary to deal with the situation. And then the floating of the naira also has a major implication. The rising inflation. Government needs to review that particular policy. And then the administration of palliative regime should be done independently. Government should establish either national palliative administrative committee, get credible, respected Nigerians who will acquire this thing, develop their mechanism of distribution as it was done by Shagari. Because Shagari set up an independent committee, not through the state governors. And they were sharing the relief, what do you call it? That time it was called relief materials and other needed materials that were lacking then. So I think the government needs to toe this line to deal with the situation. But this propaganda and rhetoric is even contributing in killing Nigerians.
Thank you very much. I think we have to go. Time is really not on our side, even though you started reeling out some of the suggestions. Thank you very much for your informed perspective. Former Minister of Youth and Sports talking about Solomon Dalong. We've been trying to get, agripreneur, but unfortunately he was unable to join to give us perspectives on the part of, those in agricultural sector. Thank you very much once again for joining the conversation.
No, I stood in for him because I'm also a farmer with a large farm, so I stood in for him.
Thank you very much for your intervention.
Thank you. And
this week's edition of Sunday Politics, and we do hope you find the conversation engaging and informative. Join us next week, where we'll be back with another interesting topic and personalities. Until then, I'm Shafiu Suleiman, thanking you for investing your time with us.